This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by The Coffin Society, a new Danger in the Details RPG premiering at Gametoba in Winnipeg, January 23rd to 25th. Go to gametoba.ca for more.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how a genre gets made. I am GMB Kamichek, here with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, known the world over as Chasing Artwork. I was told I should not make the joke long, softening co-host today. But there you've got it, dear listeners. It is our first episode back into the new year of 2026. I promise you, this is not about making New Year's resolutions. I think they're a bad idea. How are you doing, Justin?
Good. I didn't really think about it. It felt like this year I heard less about my New Year's resolution is blank. I don't know if I was just hanging out with the right people, but they seem to be less on my radar, the resolution cloud that hangs over everybody's head at this time of year.
Producer extraordinaire Dan Vadeboncoeur also joining us in 2026. Hello. Do you guys think that people are just white knuckling it through things now, and so resolutions aren't really on the horizon? Gentlemen, January is important to me because January is after what I call the Decembers. December is so complicated and convoluted that it feels like a few months long, so I call December now the Decembers. And so now that I'm on the other side of the Decembers, catching up on everything that I have to push off in the last 2 weeks of December.
Just that social and family battery just being completely drained. And
it's not even the battery. It's just my physical presence carting from place to place. I don't do well with small talk, and therefore I end up in problematic scenarios at family function. So now that the Decembers are over, I feel a renewed sense of purpose, clarity. Our real New Year's resolutions really we make as the last episode of the show. So while I am saying, dear listener, of course, we don't make New Year's resolutions, we make year-long plans, which if you've listened to those recap episodes, we often mess up.
Yeah.
So we don't worry about it. We just set some new goals.
Which is, I think, your plan should be grander than what you can achieve. I think that is
your reach.
Setting goalposts further than you think possible
should
be
exceed
the standard.
Your grasp.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely it should. And one of the things I thought would be fun to talk about today is the unintentional advancements that are the result of those kinds of reaches. So, for example, if you are a creative person who has made some lofty New Year's resolution, I would caution you against anything too lofty. Instead, what I would say you should do is find the thing you had the most fun working on last year and work on it some more. And then you'll be closer to it being finished, which deep down is the secret to your resolution anyway, is having more things finished, right? But if you are doing that, there will be unintentional advancements in your, shall I use the capital C word, career as a creative person. And I asked Justin, if I brought this up, would you have a concept that came immediately to mind of unintentional advancements?
You can't tell the listener that we prepped this ahead of time.
Well, we didn't.
It has to seem natural.
Oh, seem natural. Yeah. That's right. Dan, edit out anything that seems like we were prepared.
No.
Why don't you tell me what you think I mean by unintentional advancement?
So
your carefully prepared answer.
My carefully prepared answer. The one that came to mind was early in my career. As a graphic designer, I wanted to be a concept artist at a video game. I had zero interest in making books or telling stories with illustration, comics, kids' books, otherwise. But right out of college, one of my first big projects was a electrical engineer's kind of lifelong dream project of a kid's book. And so he hired me, and over the next, I think it grew in scope. It was supposed to be a couple-month project, took like 2 or 3 years of chipping away at this book. And I made my very first book called Everything You Need to Know About Electricity, brackets, well, almost. And it was a fun project, and I learned so much. It was my biggest large scale project to date. And as soon as it was done, I think even before it was done, I had already lined up working on another kid's book with another author. And by the time that was done, I was kind of hooked into this storytelling through pictures, making books world.
Was
And
this before or after the Prince Henry? There was some Prince book he did related to the monarchy.
This is
Parallel?
before.
Before.
That was kind of my first foray into comics. I was hired by a shady comics company
Yes.
to make a Prince Harry biopic bio story comic. I made it was 16 pages, and they had another artist make the other 16 pages. Never saw a dime from it. Their whole thing was hiring Canadian artists. They were a company based out of British Columbia, and then they would ghost you. And when you try to track them down, they're based out of British Columbia, Washington, and so they could just stonewall you and say, "Try suicide if you want," and blah blah. And they were terrible.
See you in court.
Yeah.
We're not naming them because they're quite litigious right now, I've noticed recently.
Yeah.
However, they're the worst.
And they are.
In my opinion. Just my opinion.
Actually, that was kind of the only silver lining on that was when I started doing Comic Cons, and I mentioned this incident to almost every other person in comics had a similar experience with it. Like, they just made the rounds burning every bridge.
They burned every bridge you could.
Yeah.
Now, so this unintentional advancement then, it was like you said yes to an opportunity, then you developed some skills, and you're like, oh, I think I'll chase those.
Oh my God, I love this. I need to do more of this.
And then being able to make some books meant you made more books, and making more books.
I'm on book number 14 now.
Yeah, but it led you to be taken advantage of, right? And that didn't dissuade you from your love of the thing, right? So important to separate the idea of that capital C career as something that is just a laundry list of successes, right? It's also things that went wrong so that you know better, so that you apply, knowing that probably you didn't work ever without a better contract after that.
There was definitely a little more due diligence put in place.
Right. So those things all lead to something else, which then led us to work together, and led us to do 3 books to get 4 books together.
Something like that.
Something like that, maybe, and a couple more on the horizon.
Yeah.
But not because you set out to say, I'm going to make 14 books. You just followed what you were good at. If you had been completely overwhelmed with the joy of graphic design, you wouldn't have been lured away into illustration. You know, one imagines.
I think those also important to, like, if you're an illustrator, if you're a designer, to dabble in those different fields. The fact that I have that graphic design really helps my bookmaking. The fact that I can illustrate helps my graphic design, right? Like, all those different things. I think over specialization can be good, but can also be stagnating, and it's good to kind of go off in different directions. Even now, like, trying different things in my career, I think is important, and I need to do it more often.
As the Secretary General of the United Nations, an organization of 147 member states, who represent almost all of the human inhabitants of the planet Earth, I send greetings.
Every couple of years, I reread Steve Martin's book, Born Standing Up, which I think is one of the better books on writing. It's not a book about writing at all. He has a quote in there, which is, there is no harm in charging yourself up with delusions between moments of valid inspiration. And I think that
There's no harm.
There's no harm in it.
To
be like, yeah, I'm going to be the next greatest thing ever. As long as preceding and post, there's some valid inspiration. So like you, as an example, were like, I'm going to make the greatest book on electricity ever made, right? That's a bit of a delusion. But the valid inspiration is when I put pictures one after the other, I love how it feels and how it looks and how it tells a story. That's a valid inspiration. It's a little bit of a like, oh, I'm going to be the next greatest thing. A good example for me is when I first did Infinitum. It was going to be the first graphic novel of one of Canada's largest science fiction and fantasy publishers. And it was going to be, I forget, their 100th book or something. I don't remember the numbers, but I was like, oh, this is good. This is it.
Yeah.
Right? This is
or Cassian Tong. I couldn't stop fantasizing about it being a feature film, right? Like, oh my God, like, what if this blows up and we get it on the screen?
Worked hard in other avenues to try and build up some ways to make that happen. And those moments of delusion were anchored by valid inspirations. You had accomplishments along the way.
Right. We actually did work, not just think about.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that because, in particular, this January, I am organizing a book, the print volume of a book called The Princess and the Dragon that I did with, obviously it's based on the movie's based on the story that Jonathan and I wrote, which then we did a scriptment for and generated a whole bunch of material. So we're collecting that all in a volume. And what I found interesting about it is how much self-delusion was between each step. So like, for example, there's an introduction which explains where I had been asked to work on a different film project and tour this location, which was the RCMP Old Forensics Lab, gave me an idea for a movie. I was like, this is going to be the greatest movie ever. I started working on the script, did a pitched the idea for that movie. No, we're not making that. Deflation, right? I had valid inspiration, but now the delusion dissuaded. But then my next thing was, but I like this story a lot. I'm going to write this story no matter what. This idea really fires me up. Valid inspiration. If it's not a movie, it's not a script, then it's this short story. I want it to be really weird. So of course I'll invite Jonathan to co-write a story with me. And also he at that time had been saying, I need to get more focused on writing. And so I said, well, why don't we work on something where you can have some divided focus and you can just polish as we go. And then that was like, oh, this is going to be so great. We're going to write it as a whole novel. And then in my mind, it's like, no, it kind of fizzled into a short story.
Mm-hmm.
So Delusion, right? It's not the greatest novel ever written. It is now a short story. Got to rewrite it so that it goes finished. Now I have a complete idea. Years pass. Someone says to me, hey, do you have a script or an idea for a single location, only a few characters, low budget horror movie? My God, I do. This is going to be the next greatest thing ever.
Takes place in a movie theater.
Right. That's right. Right. Dust off all that stuff. The delusion returns, inflates the sales. Right. Inflates the sales, moves the whole thing forward a little bit. Oh, it's not going to be big budget. It's not even going to be small budget. It's going to be micro budget. Oh, well, we're not going to have union actors. We're going to just have theater actors, like people who show up in the clinch because the whole thing is falling apart. Oh, okay. But now we're on set. The delusion returns. This is the greatest experience of my life, to be there, clacking the board with my name on it, all of these things. And so these delusions surge you ahead. And now that we're collecting...
They're validated.
They're valid inspirations with these periods of total delusion. And so as I'm laying this book out with all of these pieces in it, it's really...
the book, like you're now reverse engineering it into a graphic novel?
So what we're doing is the Princess and the Dragon will include in its covers the original story, the original short story that Jonathan and I wrote.
Yeah.
It'll have a little bit of preamble of everything I just said. Then the original short story that Jonathan and I wrote, a whole bunch of graphic design related to that. Then the script that we wrote originally with a bunch of graphic design that went onto that. The storybook that I wrote and illustrated that became the prop for the movie will also be in this whole collection.
So it's kind of like in bookstores, like the making of X film, and it's like shots of on the sets and the script, and
that's what you'd think.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
Completely separating it from the movie production as a artifact of these were all the valid inspirations that went to this delusion of filmmaking, essentially. This is how I'm framing it now. I never thought about it in that way until this conversation. But these are unintentional advancements from an idea that I could not have known would lead me somewhere. And now what's happened is, having made this, been part of the making of a feature-length film that got distribution, had a number of professional film elements work in. I've been asked now to participate in some other more significant film projects, which are other people's dreams that come in, like tinker with their dreams a little bit. which I would never have imagined I would be qualified to do if not for this little bit of delusion that got me moving in the first place. So I think the New Year's resolution has in itself a little bit of delusion. There's a valid inspiration, a little bit of delusion, but the problem is there's no repeated activity. You're not following a pattern, and so it's very hard to continue with it. And so I suggest instead go back to the thing you really liked doing. Then you'll be much easier to make a pattern. The thing I really like doing is telling stories with words and with pictures and putting those things together. I'm hoping there will be an unintended advancement to a regular meeting that I've been having for the last number of months, which is inspired by the passing of Saint Lynch. David Lynch's passing. He would say, if you want to make a film project, you need 70 index cards, and your ideas can fit on those 70 index cards, and that's enough. Just fill them up and then start. We're not David Lynch. We're not that smart, so we can't do it quite that way. But I've been working on this project called The Chalice for a long time, and we're re-envisioning it we set up 70 index cards, and I put these really elaborate Victorian artwork stickers on the back of each index card so that they are individually unique. There's 70 cards, and there's only one of each card, and they're easy to find pictographically now in the stack. Because dear listener, if you've ever tried to organize a screenplay on index cards, the nightmare is every time you sit down to work on it, you have to reorganize it. Ugh, great, but also so tedious. But by adding a visual element to it, we know, we just need to look at all of these ones that have in this very specific instance, a bunch of pigs dressed up in tuxedos. Right? So there's a set of pigs dressed up in tuxedo cards, and those are main character cards in our screenplay, right? So we can sort through it and add the notes to the characters that way. 2 to 3 hours a week, meeting regularly with no set timeline of how we have to finish, just that we're going to fill all 70 cards with all the beats of the movie in the right order by going slowly, carefully, and enjoying ourselves.
Enjoying the process.
Yeah. So myself and Mike Sanders are working on it this way. And while we were doing it, none other than local celebrity Al Simmons is in the coffee shop, and I happened to notice that he's there. And Mike hasn't met him yet, and the last time I saw him was at a Christmas party for Manitoba Film and Sound or something like that. Film and Music, whatever it's called now. And the acronym's changed, I think, like every 3 years. The point of this is, right at the time that we were organizing to say, we need this character who's a little bit of an older gentleman, a little bit of a bit of a dandy, for lack of a better word. Al Simmons, and if those locals know him, is literally appears in front of us, and he's there with his sister, and he notices what we're doing. So he says, "What are you doing?" "Oh, we're working on a movie." His sister says, "Oh, you got to put Al in your movie. This is fate." But as this is all happening, Mike is looking at me with the look of like, "Oh my God, Al is perfect for this thing that it be," right? So these are unintended advancements. Is Al Simmons going to be in a movie that we haven't even finished the script for? Likely no. Is the moment of delusion exciting to then write that scene, imagining him as that character in that role? Absolutely.
What'd you line?
Line?
Work. What do you do when you're not hitching rides?
Oh, I make maps.
Make any money?
I make maps.
I think if you're not from Winnipeg or the Manitoba, Canada region, you should look at Al Simmons. You should listen. Yeah. You should find his I Collect Rocks song. You should put it on repeat. Right? But what a great, an amazing entertainer that's had a long and sort of history. I'll tell one brief Al Simmons story. This goes way back now. My kids are maybe 6 and 8, maybe 8 and 10. And they're out riding their bikes with the neighborhood kids on the street. And all of a sudden, my oldest son comes riding back in a hurry, maybe running back. I don't remember. Tara and I are out in the yard. He's like, somebody's talking to the kids. Like, you always told us, if somebody approaches us, we should come running. And well, where's everyone else? they're interested. They didn't left. They didn't leave, so I ran back. So my wife Tara looks down the lane and she's like peering, like full mama bear mode, like, oh, okay, I guess we're committing a murder. Come along, Gregory. And then spots who it is. And it's none other than beloved children's entertainer Al Simmons, who has, we find out, pulled up with his wife. They're going out for dinner, sees a group of kids on the street, rolls down the window and says, "Hey kids, you want to see what's in my trunk?"
Jeez.
And so he opens the trunk and it's one of his crazy invention instruments. And so he starts showing them. So of course they're on the sidewalk. He's doing this. Now I brought this up at that Christmas party a year ago to him. I was like, I don't know if you remember this, but he's like, actually, I remember that vividly. That's the last time I ever did anything so stupid with a group of young people. He's like, I realized it as it was unfolding, how problematic this is in a day of recording devices. Like, hey, kid, do you want to see my... So anyway, this is my Al Simmons story. So he has been a fixture in the mythology of our creative space here in Manitoba. So the fact that he sort of appeared almost like a saint while we were working on this is a delusion. But it's a moment of that inspired a bit of valid inspiration, which then, right, leads on to the next thing, which leads to the next thing.
Should we talk about the other part that comes with every creative process, though? Because it's, in my experience, it's always a bit of a roller coaster of euphoria. Like, this is the best idea ever. This is going to be the biggest, like, we'll go graphic novel. This graphic novel is going to, like, sell like crazy.
Wait till
publishers
see this.
Yeah. The Kickstarter is going to, like, break records. And then on the other end is, this idea is dumb. Nobody's going to look twice at this. Why am I even spending all these hours? Like, who's this for?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
balancing those two things out.
Am I any good? Wait, am I a genius? I am a genius. I am no good. I am definitely the worst. Right.
I like those
This is the
days in between where it's like you're just working and not worried too much about the beginning or the end or like anything. It's just like, here's what I've got in front of me. I am building this town today. Nothing. I don't have to worry about anything else. Just enjoying the work.
My work in the like role-playing game space is really useful for ideas that could be 100 novels, but I don't have any time to write 100 novels or do 100 graphic novels. So I instead can make a 40-page supplement that is all the details you'd need to tell a bunch of your own stories with these characters. And the last number of years, developing that stuff has been a really useful part of my own creative process, because I know what's going to happen is, I have a great idea for these characters, the situation. I don't know how it would end. I don't even know if it'd be that interesting to write, but I can't let go of the concept. So then that becomes the next thing I develop into.
Then the characters, the other people you play with, they figure that out.
Exactly right. All that stuff gets figured out because the danger in the detail system is structured that it must end as a story. It funnels all the players into story breaking a good ending. And so because I then take it out on the road, this one that I just finished called The Coffin Society, I just send it out to the printer. I'll be doing all this year at a bunch of different gaming events. And I can't wait to find out how that story ends 100 different ways.
Yeah.
You know, like it's so exciting. The Kill the Sorcerer one I did has been so fun to play again with different groups over and over again and be like, oh, that's how that ends. Oh, that's who the good guy was. Oh, I had no idea. I just couldn't get these characters out of my head. And so you just sort of put them all in a pile. That's been I think role-playing games in general I'm just realizing this now actually, fit that notion of delusion and valid inspiration pretty regularly. Because it also has, anyone familiar with tabletop role-playing games, and I don't mean to denigrate them when I say this, but there is a gambling element to it. You got to roll dice and see if you're right. And the dice decide whether your idea was a good idea or a bad idea. So it's at a certain point, you're free of the responsibility of your choice because now the dice chose it for you. Right? So it could have been a good idea. And if it goes badly and it all falls apart, you go, and your friends all laugh. And you never know how it might have turned out. But you're also not responsible for it having been good or bad because the dice take that piece in. So from a storytelling element, if you really are, dear listener, like obsessed with the New Year's resolution, the way you should make is play some tabletop role-playing games, I'd say. Yeah, there's lots out there. Not just Dungeons and Dragons, although that was pretty good.
But even with projects like books or movies or what have you, there is that, not gambling, but the chance of where people's interests are at that time, the time of year, what else is happening in the world. Like there's just all these little things that are outside of your control that kind of determine the launch and the success of some things.
Yeah, because your inspiration and someone else's inspiration, you never know when they will align. Like
Right.
the ability to be inspired and the ability to make something that is inspiring, you don't get to decide when in time that is going to line up.
Like what if your great vampire novella
Yeah.
was 6 months after Twilight hit the shelves,
Right.
right? Like doesn't matter how great that was, you were being overshadowed.
The sparkly lights of those
oversparkled, yeah.
are going to outshine you. Yes, for sure. And that is also, I think, why, beloved filmmaker here at the studio, John Carpenter, a movie like The Thing, which fails at the box office, doesn't, it scares away audiences. It's too grotesque is what the people are saying. Wasn't ready. It was ahead of its time because his inspirations didn't line up with the needs of the audiences at that time. And I think when we're looking for escape, it depends what you use your media for, but if it's escape or inspiration or just safety, sometimes it's just you just want to feel safe while you're watching something. There can be a lot of different ways and times that you encounter something. And while I sometimes decry the development of streaming and how it's changed people's tastes, it's also allowed old shows to find completely new audiences with a real,
Because prior to that, you'd have to spend $60 to $100 to get like the box sets,
and you'd have to know enough to try.
Yeah.
You'd have to take a risk. You'd have to convince some people to watch it with you. You'd have to go. There'd be all these steps, and now you can hear from 1,000 people that you know or have heard of on social media. Oh, I tried watching this old show and it's amazing.
You know where that place is?
If this is California and down here's Texas, that must be like Arizona, maybe.
Want to be driven? Arizona, maybe.
You don't know where that thing is going to lead. You don't know where the thing you're working on is going to lead next. You don't know whether your inspiration is even valid.
Yeah, the whole time you're either thinking you're the hottest shit or
The worst.
The worst.
Yeah. You either are the shit or you're eating shit. But one of the, you're just trying to make it work. But do you have anything you're working on now that you don't know where it's going to lead and you don't care? You just can't wait to get back to it. Big or small.
The other big thing that I thought of when you asked about some decision in your career that took you in a direction you didn't think you were going to go, and now that's become a big thing. My next graphic novel, Spark Chasers, the whole art style is set in this isometric style, which is this. It's kind of a top-down fixed view that video games used. I've explained it on the podcast a lot, I think. But it's just a style of artwork that I had never really played around with before. And I started playing around with it because I'm working on this graphic novel with this style.
And to emulate old gameplay.
The look of the old look, yeah. And it has now spawned this whole era of my portfolio that is all these isometric pieces that don't have anything to do with my book. They're their own things. I've done a big isometric journey of Lord of the Rings. I'm doing some for Final Fantasy. I did a Sonic piece, all these other fan art things that I've fit into this new artistic style that is just, my isometric era.
People have a blue period.
Right.
You have a hue period.
Yeah. And I was thinking overall, when I started doing art, it was usually just one character pinup, right? Not even, I was all about clean background. So I'd have one character kind of floating on the page.
And then they'd be shattered into all these different images.
Yeah. And then I started getting this shattered vector painting. And then it was big versus little. And so it was always kind of a side profile of big versus little. And then I got into like overly robotic complexity of like robots being battle damaged and ripped apart and stuff like that. And now everything is isometric, and all my new ideas I'm fitting into this isometric style. I forget what your original question was.
So my question, you in a way answered it by accident, by going on the tangent, because you didn't know that starting with no backgrounds, isolated characters would lead you there. All you knew is when I'm painting, I feel good.
This is what I love doing right now.
Yeah.
But eventually you start to feel a little stagnant with that whatever style. If everything's blue, you eventually get a little sick of blue and you start to move into other colors, right? And so this has just been the newest thing. And even when I was starting to do all these pieces, it was really gnawing at me that like, okay, I should be working on the book. I shouldn't be doing these other isometric projects. But man, I'm so pumped about the leaps and bounds I've made in this style and how much more comfortable I've gotten it and how much better this final book is going to be because I took all these side quests before coming back to the main quest.
See, that then reminds me, elucidates for me that I started similarly. I didn't think of myself as an artist at all. I just was a doodler that wanted to write serious prose novels. That's what I wanted. And I kept drawing elements that I didn't know how to describe first, and then typing them up to describe them, and then figuring out how to include graphic design until somebody said, why aren't you making comics? And I was like, well, because I loved comics. I was obsessed with comics. I had owned a comic store, all these things. Like, well, it's a whole other thing. I'm not ready for that. But my failed prose novels and my failed illustrations for them remixed became my first graphic novel.
Put those two things together.
And then that love of making graphic novels, like, okay, I'm a graphic novelist. Prose is not my thing, clearly.
But you still get to write.
But I still get to write.
And you still get to draw.
And then that led me to do, dozen graphic novels or whatever. And then the idea that I wanted to write prose never went away. I kept working on stories, kept having drafts, kept throwing away drafts, kept doing this.
Now, how many prose books do you have?
Well, this is what I'm getting at is like, I thought that chapter had closed because I wasn't good enough. I went through that roller coaster you're talking about. And then where I started getting the most doors opened was based on my illustration, which I was for a long time. I was resentful of every time I would get a paid gig related to illustration when I'm like, I'm a writer, right? I'm a writer, I promise. And then, but I enjoyed the illustration part. So rather than be too upset at myself, I just said, okay, well then this is what I'm going to work on. I'm going to just follow the yeses for a while. And those led to a lot of different opportunities I wouldn't have had otherwise. And now the ability to put together a prose novel is really at the forefront of my output right now. Adding illustration to prose work seems to be my era now.
Yeah.
Like not graphic novels, but illustrated prose books. And I think 2026, 2027 will be a return to graphic novels for me, just based on what I'm working on currently.
Well, again, that swing again. You've spent so much time in the prose world for a while, and you just I want to get out of this pool for a little bit and go over here in this graphic novel pool, and then you're going back and forth.
It's also you can only outdo yourself so often without eventually ending up with your head in your own ass, right? So like you can only do the same trick so many times before you're like, oh, well, that'll be easy because I'll just do what I did last time. And as soon as
you're just specialized.
This is what I mean. As soon as I start feeling like, oh, I can do that because I'll just do it like I did the last one.
Yeah.
To me, that's the death of my own creativity. That's great for some people. Some people love that structure. They have built whole careers by relying on a certain structure.
Well,
more power to that.
That's you can not endlessly fine-tune a process, right? So over specialization is not a bad thing sometimes either.
Except that I die inside. So that
it's not for you.
That's not for me. So switching up with different challenges and different things is a great place for me to be in right now. And what I'm secretly hoping, my secret curriculum, is that some of the stuff that's happening on the film side, on the TV side, on the pro side, on the graphic novel side, I can pull in all of the people I like from all of those fields to work then on a project that is of our own creation. I mean, always the goal for anyone is to steer the ship themselves, or at the very least, have all the crew be people you like, right? While you go into the unknown waters. And let's face it, dear listeners, it is an uncertain future we're looking at right now. So you better pull the people you can trust close by around you, right? I think.
I was thinking the other day how, like, if you're somebody with a more conventional career, job, etc., you have the real possibility of getting fired at some point.
Yeah.
And you might have to start a new career, new job. And for us, that sometimes kind of happens too, right? Like if you were in the steampunk, all you did was steampunk stuff, right? And for a couple of years, you are well employed in the steampunk.
For the dear listener, in comic convention land, steampunk was the thing.
It ruled
for a long time.
A couple of years there.
For a couple of years, if you wanted to make bank, steampunk jewelry, steampunk costumes, books, steampunk comics, steampunk everything, goggles. I don't know how many goggles were manufactured during that period. But man, I'm looking at your steampunk Iron Man here on the wall, right? That paper tool.
Circa 2011, my steampunk Iron Man.
So all of that was a thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a thing anymore to that degree.
Those artists, those makers kind of got fired from that particular position. Steampunk is no longer a thing.
That's right.
So that, part of me was like, that's kind of exciting. It's obviously, oh God, where's income and stability and all that. But you might have a new job, new group of people. Yes.
Yeah.
You get to start in a new place doing something new. But that kind of happens to us sometimes too.
Yeah, nonstop.
Yeah.
In a way, almost on a weekly basis, we have to reevaluate something like, so rather than being vague about it, am I or am I not going to attend the Vancouver Fan Expo? Depends on a number of phone calls that are going to happen in the next week. This will determine whether or not I then outlay thousands of dollars for the booth and the accommodations and set my schedule, arrange with my wife, arrange with my family that I cannot be available for helping in all of the, like, there's a whole spiderweb of activity that is going to change week to week for the next 52 weeks of this year. And we've gotten accustomed to being like, yeah, that's how it is. But when we sometimes lovingly call them civilians come in and ask us how we do our job, they don't understand. They cannot understand that you wouldn't know that 3 weeks from now you have a meeting with Sally in accounting. Like you just can't know those things in this job. And it's maybe we're the period of self-delusion is what we say to each other after those calls. I'm sure it'll all work out.
Yes.
Right? That's what we say. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. There's always something. That's the delusion between the valid inspiration of, I have repulsive essentials. I must have income. I must use my skills and my outputs to generate something so that my family can eat vegetables. These things are necessary, right? But you can't always plan for what they always are.
Can't get her out, huh?
Gas.
Yeah, well, I know just how she feels.
What if you were fired from Isometric? Like, what if suddenly there was like some reason why everyone detested Isometric?
Yeah.
That Isometrics is canceled.
But like, for example, like something even more extreme. What if it's announced there is a worldwide paper shortage? If you are in the print industry, you're basically the bad guy.
Yeah.
If you're printing things on paper, you are wasting a precious resource, and we all hate you.
Last time that happened, dear listener, historians, that was during a World War conflict.
Oh.
We would never have one of those again, would we?
Do our books suddenly become more valuable?
Or needing to be pulped for certain benefits. The artistic conceit underlying all my propaganda, my World War propaganda, is that propaganda is, and always has been, murder advertising. Sending humans to kill other humans to take their stuff is wrong.
But in exotic lands.
Yeah.
See the world.
That is wrong.
Kill the bad guys.
Right? But if aliens invaded, if gibbering mouther creatures crawled from the center of the earth to eat us, that would be okay if we needed to galvanize all of humanity against
Kill those
Right.
bugs. Do your part.
that would be okay. So the premise underlying that artistic conceit of mine is there ever a time when propaganda would be okay? That's underneath the motivation of the
If it wasn't humans, is your answer.
what's that?
If it not for humans,
Not for humans.
Everybody else.
Kill humans bad,
kill humans.
right? Kill monstrosities from the stars. Good. Speaking of aliens from the stars, John Carpenter's Starman.
Yeah.
I saw for the first time. I was going through it's the holidays. I had a little bit of time that I was going to take for myself. God damn it. What a great movie.
It's good. It's good.
But the reason I hadn't watched it is that when I think of John Carpenter's filmography, I think of the horror movies and the fantasy movies and like Stephen King adaptations and things like that. And so Starman had always fallen off as I would read up on it and be like, oh, wait, this is a love story? I mean, I love Jeff Bridges and I love, what's the actress's name? Karen Allen. I want to say she carries that whole film on the bridge of her nose. Like her acting in that, like I am completely invested in that story from frame one of her mourning her dead husband. And the plot, dear listener, if you didn't know, is the Voyager. This is the other thing. I'm a huge Carl Sagan fan. Andrianne designed the Voyager record, the golden record that went out on the Voyager 2. And that's the premise of Starman, is that the invitation for aliens to come to Earth that's on that golden record is followed by an alien species, and they send somebody to Earth to be like, I wonder if they're cool or not. And we shoot them down immediately.
Yeah.
Right? And so Jeff Bridges finds the alien takes a strand of baby hair, and there's this incredible John Carpenter, like it's so perfectly Carpenter, where a pulsating, glowing baby elongates into Jeff Bridges, right? Has the entire growth cycle. Absolutely phenomenal. But here's what I want to say about this. At no point in my love of that person's body of work had that film interested me. And I regret deeply that I hadn't seen it sooner. But that's only because I'm an older man. Like, someone pushing 50 looks at a story about what is the purpose of a life differently than a young person would, of course. And like, it's a movie that's way ahead of its time.
Growing up, did you guys ever pay attention to who the director was?
No.
Yeah.
I think when I started was John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, maybe.
Like, that's actually when I started to care. I was obsessed. That movie was my Star Wars. I was obsessed with finding out more of it.
Yeah.
And so then I started then, I saw that movie before I saw The Fog, before I saw The Thing, before I saw the Prince of Darkness. All of those I saw as a result of seeing a TV edited version of John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. And it was also vaguely the least racist depiction of, like, ethnicities I had ever seen on television at that time. I don't know if it holds up from a cultural standpoint, but for me as a young viewer, I was like, wow, there's more to this than just some high-flying kung fu. So what this has to do with what I'm talking about is, does he, when he begins his career, know that Halloween is going to lead to Starman? You could never guess that. And in fact, since what I like to do now, when I watch a new movie, I go and look at its history, how it was released, how it was received, all this kind of stuff. He had not had successes at the box office, and those resulted in different choices than he wanted, and those resulted in a series of films that I adore. So in one set of calculations, his repeated failures gave me so much joy in my life, right? And so, dear listener, your repeated failures where you're like, oh, I missed the mark, oh, I didn't get it, it's not what I imagined, it's not what I thought, right? You were elated. The valid inspiration still showed up in all of that body of work. It can show up in yours. It has definitely showed up in yours, Justin. I've seen it in even how you have developed as a podcast host. Dear listener, I believe you are capable of great things, but one of them might not be fulfilling any of your New Year's resolutions. This has been Super Bowl of Science. Join the fight and make comments.